So a healthy Jimmy Butler chasing James Harden around in this playoff series, will that make enough of a difference for Minnesota to actually be able to pull off this tremendous upset?
I still think it's going to be very difficult for them because, certainly Jimmy Butler is the real key defensively for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, he's their really defensive anchor along with Taj Gibson. But, throughout the course of the season, the Minnesota Timberwolves have always struggled with their defensive identity. And now you're facing, as Coach D'Antoni said, two Hall of Fame point guards in Paul and Harden. And thus far, the Minnesota Timberwolves have not given us any indication that they're up to the task of guarding, either one of these guards. And I think for that reason, you've had these large double-digit victories by Houston throughout the season, and I'm not sure that's going to really change much here in the playoffs.
And also, too, I've been around Tibbs when in Chicago. Tibbs, especially when he got time to prepare, especially in the playoff series, he's going to do everything possible to try to take James Harden and Chris Paul out the game. He's going to make the other guys beat him. But the key thing is when you look at that Jimmy Butler-James Harden matchup, they run a lot of pick and rolls for James Harden. So a lot of times it's going to be up to the other guy. Now, if you put him in a pick and roll with Taj Gibson, Taj Gibson can move his feet. He can defend guards. He can defend guys on the perimeter. That's a pretty good matchup. But if that's not the case and James is able to attack the other bigs, I think Tibbs got to figure out if he's going to trap him, is he going to show. And Wiggins, he has to play big. He can't come out and average 17 points. He got to come out and average 20 to 25 points, and he got to be able to give Jimmy Butler a rest on the defensive end guarding James Harden.
So in this series during the regular season, Houston hit 17 three-pointers a game against Minnesota. How do they defend that? How do they make sure that that doesn't happen? Because you're not going to beat Houston if they're going to hit 17 three-pointers in a game.
Well, listen, I think Rip was alluding to it. The minute or the very second that you begin to help on Paul and Harden, that means you're creating space somewhere else, in the half court. And that's where Houston kills you because they're the best three-point shooting team in the league. And anytime that you help, whether it be in the lane or on the perimeter against a guy like Harden, they're going to make the right play to the open jump shooter. Ball's going to be peppered around and moving, and they're going to find a great three-point shot. And that's why they build these leads. That's why they have these runs, and that's why they're a great offensive team. Maybe, an unprecedented three-point shooting offensive team.
17 made three-pointers a game. That's
incredible.
That's tough to beat right there. But I think the key to that is Capella. He's done an excellent job, especially being in them pick-and-roll situation of making the right play. When he catch that ball in that little pinch post area, he's always either attacking the basket for an easy dunk, but he's a great passer too. So he's always good at making a swing pass from strong to weak. He's dominated games on the offensive glass. I think he's going to be one of the key factors in this game.
Mindset is always extremely important. If you heard Karl Anthony Towns in that interview with Kristen, he seems like he's dialed in, and making the playoffs is something he wanted to do, and now trying to pull off this huge upset is something his mind is set on. With a guy with that much talent, can he do enough to be the guy that leads them to that? 68 double-doubles in the season?
Well, I think one of the things we're going to be looking at in Game 1 is, they just came off of what would be a play-in game in beating the Denver Nuggets. Yeah, it really was a playoff game and an overtime win, very emotional win. I'll be watching today Karl Anthony Towns and the rest of the T-Wolves to see how they respond from a very emotional win, having to go on the road against the best offensive team, in the conference. Are they defensively? Do they have that kind of resolve to compete defensively in Game 1?
Like he said, biggest thing for Karl Anthony Towns, he's going to score points. He's one of the most talented big men we got in our game. But defensively, especially with James Harden in that pick-and-roll situation, he tends to struggle defensively, especially in pick-and-roll and guarding man-to-man defense, especially on the perimeter. So if he can pretty much knuckle down, slide his feet, I don't know what else he can do. But he got to figure out a way to defend James Harden and Chris Paul in them pick-and-roll situations.